The Washington Commanders finished ahead of the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East last year, but that might not be the case again in 2025. I'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Landon McCool is out on vacation. He will be back next week. But we've got a special guest for you guys here today. It is David Harrison from Locked On Commanders. Listen, you and I only normally get to talk a couple times out of the year during these crossover shows. So I'm really glad that we're chatting now compared to like a big game middle of the season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's always, look, I mean, I know Commanders fans hate Cowboys fans and the Cowboys fans hate Commanders and Commanders fans. But you know what? It's like, it's also fun. It's like fun. The Army and the Marines. Like, you hate each other, but you also kind of love to hate each other. So it's like you can't live without each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's 100% true. That's what makes the NFL so fun is we've got these rivalries that have happened for 50 years, 60 years. So there's a lot of good trash talk. So let's talk about the Commanders. We're going to talk about Jane Daniels in year 2, Dan Quinn in year 2 with Washington. But before we do that, I want to ask you, Washington finished ahead of Dallas last year. Mm-hmm. Do you think they're going to do it again this year?
I think they certainly could. You know what I mean? I think it's a talented squad. I think that the organization has kind of the right path that they're following. I think all the moves that they make during the offseason, the guys they bring in, I think you can see clearly where they fit, what need they're addressing, why they're bringing them in. Like, it all jives, right? Like, you look at the team letting Dante Fowler Jr. walk out the door, and that's not to say they didn't necessarily try to offer him a deal to keep him, but he goes back to Dallas and they replace him with, Jacob Martin, who is not as dynamic a pass rusher, certainly, but he can set the edge better. He's a better run defender and also has some pass rushing ability. And if you believe the scheme kind of helped Dante explode last season more than Dante helped the scheme explode, then it all fits, right? The puzzle pieces fit. Now, again, that's July conversation, right? Like, we'll see what it looks like in September, October, and especially when Dante gets to come back to Northwest or gets to see the Commanders for the first time, like, he's gonna be looking to prove to them that it wasn't the scheme, it was more him. So it'll be interesting, but you just see the direction behind the decisions.
I'm gonna preface everything I'm about to say by saying I think Washington is going to be a good team this year, and it very much feels like they are on the right track. Of course, they were in the NFC Championship game last year, so why wouldn't they be on the right track? But this year feels like it's going to be harder for them because now there's expectations, right? And that's always something the Cowboys have struggled with, right? Once you have that target on your back, makes it a little bit harder. And I think teams are going to get really jazzed up to play the Commanders now. You're also playing a second place schedule, a very, very tough second place schedule compared to a fourth place schedule last year. And we'll see.
Much more travel this year. Much more travel this year. People forget the Commanders, the least traveled team last year of all teams in the National Football League. And that's not nothing, right? But this year alone, you got LA and you got Madrid. Like, you literally can't go further travel distance wise than that. And that's just, part of the schedule. So yeah, absolutely.
And there was some quarterback luck in there as well. They played a game against Cooper Rush. They played a game against Trey Lance. They played a game against Kenny Pickett, I believe, right? Maybe Jalen Hurts got knocked out early.
Jalen got hurt in the game, and Kenny played basically the game. And they lost to Cooper. I mean, they played Cooper, but they lost to him too. So,
right. So just all that's out there. I still think Washington's going to be a good team. And I think feels like such a cop-out to say, David, but it feels like whichever of these two teams can stay healthier is probably going to finish first or second in the division.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw this happen with last year with Dallas. Every big player for the Cowboys had some kind of injury. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Tyler Smith. They all missed time with injuries. If that happens again to Dallas, they're not going to finish second. And I'm sure if that happens to Washington, they probably won't either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it feels like a cop out because it's like, okay, well, it's like kind of like the no dub button, but it's so massively important, right? Like, there's so many years where the best team in the NFL doesn't necessarily win the Super Bowl. It's the healthiest team in the NFL that ends up winning the Super Bowl. Because
Yep.
what does every rookie say, Marcus, when they come in and you start asking them during like training camp or their first preseason game, what's the difference between the NFL and college? Well, they say everybody is good here. Every single player is good here. I've explained this to fans so many times covering this sport. It takes an immense amount of talent and athletic ability to suck in the National Football League. Like the people, like the talent that a third string player or practice squad bubble guy has in him compared to a normal human being is so drastic and so immense that, you know, you look at a Cowboys team, and even with some of the injuries that they had, and even with Cooper Rush playing quarterback and all this stuff, like you can still be competitive, especially against a division opponent and all those things. And yeah, like you said, man, I mean, teams, you know, I hate the saying because so many people are saying it right now, like nobody's, you know, everybody's going to see the Commanders coming this year, you know, but it is factual.
Yep.
And I've always kind of stood on, it's hard to be good in the NFL, but it's even harder to be good in the NFL twice. And so for like Jaden, great rookie season, arguably the best rookie season of any sport we've ever seen ever. But you got to do it a second year, right? Like you can't be crowned, you know, MVP caliber, things like that until you can come out here and do it for a second season. So, you know, we'll see if he can pull that off. And obviously if he can, that's great for Commanders fans, not so great for Cowboys fans, but that's going to be a big part of it.
Well, it's back to the expectation thing. It's why we haven't had a repeat winner in the NFC East in like 20 years, right? It's really hard to be that consistently good in the NFL. And you're right, it's hard to consistently suck in the NFL, but hey, the Giants managed to do it. So there you go. Little shot at Patricia. All right, let's talk about expectations. What are you thinking we're going to see from Washington here in year 2 under Dan Quinn, under Kliff Kingsbury, and Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, I think offensively you're going to see more motion, and you're going to see, and it's going to drive some Commanders fans crazy because they already believe they saw too much screen, too many short passes, things like that. But, you know, screens and all those things, they help an offense that want to go deep. And Kliff actually didn't go deep near as much as people would have expected him to coming into the situation because of his air raid, quote unquote, tag and label and all that stuff. But, you know, something I tried to explain to Commanders fans when he was hired is you go back to his days in Arizona, like he likes to lean on a big back. He likes to lean on a running game when he has the opportunity. He loves taking deep shots, don't get me wrong, but he likes to set them up. The screen game helps set those deep shots up. And so when you see a guy like Deebo Samuel come in, Jalen Lane, the rookie receiver they got out of Virginia Tech, come in, those are two things those guys are really, really good at. They're also really efficient coming out of motion. And obviously Jalen's efficiency numbers are coming out of college, so big grain of salt with that and all that stuff. But you have two guys, Deebo and Jalen, who are really good coming out of motion. And you've got a guy like Terry McLaurin, who if you can get the defense to commit themselves or to tip their hand to Jaden Daniels, or you can get them a little bit confused using that motion, and Terry can obviously take advantage of open spaces. And of course, Zach Ertz is an open space monster, as everybody in the NFC East is very familiar with. So I think a lot of that is going to pick up. The Commanders were, I think they're like 20th last year in that ballpark range in the use of motion in Kliff Kingsbury's offense. I would expect them to be at least top 15, if not top 12 this season.
We should talk about Terry McLaurin. You and I are both in agreement that he's eventually going to get the long-term deal that he wants, and it's going to be well over $30 million. This is the way I always feel about these, because the Cowboys are constantly in contract negotiations. Like, I just don't stress about these deals anymore because these teams very, very rarely let their elite talent walk.
Yeah. You know, I'm not stressed about it, and I still am confident like Terry's going to be wearing burgundy and gold this year. He's going to be out there catch a pass from Jaden Daniels. Where I'm starting to teeter a little bit, because the part of this equation that really is a wild card right now is the fact that this is the first big time renegotiation we've seen Adam Peters handle as the general manager of the Washington Commanders, right? Like, he extended Sam Cosmi last year, but there was no holdout. Sam is a very popular Commanders player, but he's not a very popular national player, right?
Yeah.
They re-signed Jeremy Reeves they extended Jeremy Reeves this offseason. The thing that really stands out to me between these three contract situations, I should say, is that while Sam Cosmi's agents are negotiating this extension behind the scenes, Sam is at training camp, right? Like, that extension got done during training camp. While Jeremy Reeves' representatives are negotiating this extension, Jeremy's at OTAs. He's at mandatory minicamp. Terry is the one of the three, and that's a very small sample size, but he's the one of the three who's like, well, I want an extension negotiation. I'm leaving. So how is Adam Peters going to respond to that? Terry said they haven't talked in over a month. That timeline kind of fits with when Terry left the team and decided not to participate anymore. So it kind of looks a little bit, and again, very small sample size, but it looks a little bit like Adam Peters' kind of GM is like, okay, you want to do that. You're the one cutting off communication. Like, you're the one who left, not us. You left. You walked away. So you want to continue negotiations. You got to walk back. We'll see what happens when training camp starts next week.
All right, let's talk about the defense, because I think that was the unit that was the most surprising to me. They were so bad in 2023, and then
Mhm.
they weren't in 2024. So what are the expectations in 2025? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money just felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're trying to grow your savings or you're planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and your spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. My family has been using Monarch Money for about 7 months now, and it's unbelievable how much more money we've been able to save month to month. With Monarch Money, we were wasting money on a lot of stupid stuff like delivery, food, coffee runs that we just didn't need. But now we are taking control of our finances. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are here with David Harrison from Locked On Commanders. You can follow him on Twitter at dharrison82. David, let's talk about the defense here, because they did lose some pieces on defense, Jonathan Allen, Dante Fowler. But what are your expectations for this unit this year?
I mean, the expectation for this unit was set by Joey Jr., the defense coordinator. When we reconvened, during OTAs, he was asked essentially, like, you made a series of moves, you let some guys go, you didn't resign some other guys, things like that. What is kind of the intention here? And he said very bluntly, they got bigger, they got stronger up front. And that was with intent, because where they were worst as a defense was against the run, especially against guys like Saquon Barkley. And so the intention this year is to get better against the run, but to not lose anything in the pass rush and potentially even get better in the pass rush. Now, that's where a lot of people have these questions, because, okay, your sack leader left in free agency, wasn't very happy about, the circumstances under him leaving. He was very public on social media about his feelings toward the team or toward the negotiation or whatever it was. So, that's a lot of sack production you have to replace. Jonathan Allen, like you mentioned, like, he missed a big chunk of the season with a torn pec, but he's had really good pressure numbers, not great sack numbers, but really good pressure numbers. So
We care
you
more
got
about
two
pressures here than
guys.
sacks here on Locked On Cowboys. So I'm glad
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
pointed that out.
absolutely. And so that's two major players that you have to replace. And, you're replacing them essentially with Javon Kinlaw, who is a smaller interior defensive lineman who's expected to play up and down the defensive line, but not exactly known as a sack monster or a pressure monster himself, right? Dietrich Wise Jr. from the New England Patriots is an edge guy that's coming in to step up, and he's definitely more of a run stopper than he is a pass rusher. And then Jacob Martin, who we've already kind of talked about. So, like, the defensive front seven looks bigger, looks stronger. So you have some confidence that, yeah, they're going to be able to hold up at the point of attack better, but you definitely see the potential for lost juice in the pass rush. And like Frankie Louvu, a lot of juice. But I mean, unless you got like three of them on the field, like, the question is just, where is all this pressure going to come from? Potentially Will Harris from the second level or third level as a safety, replacing Jeremy Chin. He's more athletic than Jeremy Chin is. So potentially he could be, a blitzer from the second or third level, depending on where he lines up, things like that. But that's what Joey Jr. gets paid for. And that's what Dan Quinn is getting paid for, is to try to figure this thing out. And it's going to be the first year that I remember seeing a Dan Quinn defense that doesn't have that kind of like monstrous hybrid safety linebacker. I mean, Will Harris, like, dimension wise, kind of matches up to Jeremy Chin, but when you stand next to him, and having stood next to Jeremy Chin, he's not the same kind of gargantuan type of athlete. So that's the expectation, but there's still a lot of question marks within those expectations.
Yeah, and I think Dan Quinn and Joe Witt are two of the more brilliant defensive minds in the league. So, like, they're going to figure things out. They'll get this unit to play at the very least, at a passable level. But my concern with Dan Quinn and Joe Witt, even in Dallas, was, okay, what does it look like when you get to the postseason? Because a lot of times what would happen is that they would get to the postseason and they would be worn down. And even DeMarcus Lawrence referenced that, I think, after the Packer playoff loss, that we were tired. And
No.
when I look at this roster, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it feels old on defense with Bobby Wagner and even someone like Jonathan Jones, who they signed, who will be
Mhm.
32. And you mentioned Dietrich Wise, he's in his 30s. Sheldon Day's in his
Yep.
30. Eddie Goldman's in his 30. Is that a concern for Washington's fans that like there's just not a lot of there is some young talent, but it's a older unit here?
Yeah, it's got to be, and I think that's part of kind of the retooling, rebuilding process. Like this team doesn't want to go out there and trade all their veterans for a bunch of draft picks, bring in 11 11 rookies in 7 rounds every year and bring in 10 more undrafted guys. Like they want to lean on some 1 year, 2 year veterans, things like that. So I think that as the years go, like I think 3 years from now, that won't be the case. But right now that's kind of the case. They're just kind of filling holes with 1 and 2 year contract veterans as they can. And that's the end result. Rotation is the key, right? And in the front four, I think you see the potential for rotation a lot better than you do in the entirety of the front seven. Because you mentioned those linebackers, Bobby Wagner, especially, man. There were games, and look, credit to Frankie Louvu, credit to Bobby Wagner. They're never going to use fatigue as an excuse, and I get that. But there were games, man, where I just remember seeing one or both of them after play laying on the field, and you just tell they don't want to get up. Like they need.
They both played over
rest.
1,200 snaps last year.
Yeah,
Like
it was insane.
those were two of the biggest snap guys in the league, and Bobby Wagner's 35 now,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, like the odds of being able to get away with that again is, not the highest in the world. So rotation's got to be a big part of it. Jordan McGee is a guy that they were very excited about last year. He got injured early in training camp, and unfortunately, like they were literally creating a 3 linebacker package to use Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and Jordan McGee on the field at the same time. Jordan gets injured, the development of that package stalls, and once you get into the season, it's really hard to just create things. You're kind of working with what you have. So now that Jordan is healthy again, there's some of that. And if Jordan can speed up his development, catch back up from those injuries, then, potentially you could see him rotate in, rotate out. I would love to see a situation where, again, the competition is going to dictate it, but say the Commanders, a lot of people aren't giving the Giants a whole lot of chance in week 1 to beat them. But let's say the Commanders are up 2 scores, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Let's get Jordan McGee in there for a drive or two. You know what I mean? Let's let Bobby Wagner sit on the sideline. Like I know it's kind of more of a collegiate approach to things, right? But like, you need to preserve those veterans. So at that linebacker level, the rotation is the big question there. Up front, they at least have enough players that you can see the rotation. Defensive backs, they have enough players to see the rotation. It's that linebacker group, and it's arguably the most important level of their defense when it comes to a talent, how top heavy they are with talent.
All right, let's talk about some young players to watch on this Commander squad. And I want your predictions on how the NFC East is going to shake out in 2025. We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Want to let you know that the Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, voted on by the NFL host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every single day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss where your favorite Cowboy players or Commanders ranked. We talked about the Cowboy players on our Thursday show. David, were you happy with where the Commanders players ranked?
Yeah, I think overall, I think overall it's acceptable. I think Jaden.
You don't sound thrilled about it. I got to be honest.
I mean, I think it's kind of a good, right? Like I'm good with it. I'm not like super pumped up, like, oh man, look at how high people had Jaden Daniels but I'm also not angry. Like, look at how low they had, Terry McLaurin or Bobby Wagner. Like Terry and Bobby came in 77 and 76, like right next to each other. And I think that's a fair, I think that's a fair place for both of them to go. I'd probably put Terry a little bit higher on my personal rankings. I know I put Jaden in the top 25, my personal rankings. He's 31st overall after 1 season in the NFL. Like, do I have a lot of ground to stand on to try to go on social media and curse out all my fellow, Locked On hosts for him being 31st overall? No, that's still a pretty good rank.
It sounds like a little shot at our guy Peter, who's just very upset that Jordan Love was ranked too low. That's all right. It's a different show. Let's talk about the Commanders, some young players that maybe Cowboy fans either don't know of or should know going into the season.
Yeah, I think that the first one you need to know is Trey Amos, right? And as we sit here today and talk about this, Trey Amos has not signed his rookie deal yet. He's one of the 32nd round picks that has not signed his rookie deal yet. So, there's a little asterisk there of, you got to watch him, but he's got to be on the field first for you to watch him. But once he gets on the field, that's a deal that's going to get done in its own time and all those things. super long, super athletic, super aggressive. And you just, whether it's CD Lamb or whether it's Pickens, like it's going to be a really great test for him to go up against Dallas Cowboys. He's going to lose some of those reps. Undoubtedly, he's going to win some of those reps as well, but he's going to grow no matter what from all of those reps. And, he's a guy, look, I got some flack on the Locked On NFL one week because Tony Wiggins and I were talking about potential award winners and like sleepers for these awards. And I mentioned Trey Amos as a sleeper for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Don't forget the opposite side of that field. If Trey is a starter, that's the first step, is earning that starting job, right? But Marshawn Lattimore is on the other side. And I know Marshawn didn't have a great 2024 with the Commanders after he was traded from the Saints and all that stuff, but he's healthy now, getting a full offseason run up with the team to learn the scheme, get comfortable. If Marshawn goes back to being Marshawn, that means Trey is going to get a lot of targets. And that's a lot of opportunities for him to get some PBUs, maybe some interceptions. The Commanders are on 10 nationally broadcast games throughout the season, so people are going to get a lot of opportunities to see him as well. So, yeah, I think that there's a possibility for Trey Amos to really make his mark on this defense, even as a rookie, and showcase some of the talent that the Commanders had him in as a first-round pick on their board. I know I was shocked when he was still there when they came around in the second round, and I was super thrilled when they picked him.
I was furious when Washington picked him because he's one of the guys I remember on the Thursday night after round one. We did a show and I was kind of upset with the Tyler Booker pick, different topic. I was saying, okay, if the Cowboys can get Trey Amos in round two, I'm going to be thrilled. It's going to make up for it, right? Well, yeah. Donovan Ezeraku fell to them, who I had ranked higher for Amos. So I was thrilled with that pick. But when Amos went to Washington, I'm like, doggone Dan Quinn and Joe Witt, they did it again. They get a long corner that has ball skills. I know the interception totals weren't great, but he's just around the football at all times. And you look at what Dan Quinn and Joe Witt have done with, they turned Trayvon Diggs to somebody who I think was very similar to Amos at Alabama into an all-pro corner. They turned Deron Bland into an all-pro corner. I won't be shocked if Amos is that guy, which sucks. I hate it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I was really mad when Donovan Ezeraku went to Dallas. Like he was sitting there in the first round, and I was like, bro, the Commander, like you need a pass rusher. Go get Donovan Ezeraku. They go Josh Connerly Jr. I mean, look, trenches is trenches. You got to address the trenches, so I can't be mad too much at him for it. But yeah, Donovan Ezeraku was my guy entering round one of the NFL draft. So I'll look forward to seeing him twice a year. Don't get me wrong. I just, don't want to have to write about him burying Jaden Daniels. Hopefully. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to see the Trey Amos versus George Pickens matchup. Like that's going to be a lot of fun because those two guys love to be physical. So that's a matchup.
There's going to be some flags. There's going to be some flags there. Yeah. There's going to be some flags there.
All right. What are your predictions for the Commanders in the NFC East this year? I know we're still in July and predictions are it's hard to say that before the pads come on, but just give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I went ahead and did one. I had some listeners asking like mailbag questions or like give me, a full season prediction. So I found one of those sites where you can predict every single game every week. And so I predicted the entire league, right? And I came out with the Commanders having 10 wins, which, on the surface, that's less than 12, obviously, right? So it's like, okay, so they have a down year. But you mentioned it. The competition is much harder this year. The schedule, the travel is harder this year. The pressure is going to be higher this year. So I think 10 wins in this season contextually compared to 12 wins last season, I think it's either a push or actually might even be better. You know what I mean? I look at, even some of the worst teams, like one of the worst, quote unquote teams on their schedule, Las Vegas Raiders, week 3. I think the Raiders are going to be a much better team this year than they were last year. And so I don't think that's going to be a cakewalk at all.
Better coaching, better quarterback, strong running game.
Max Crosby's reinvigorated. It's going to be tough. But yeah, man. So I think 10 wins, and for the record, since this is a Cowboys podcast, in my prediction, the Cowboys also made the playoffs. The Eagles did win the division. So they broke the streak of not having a streak of winners, division winners. But, it was Commanders, Cowboys, and Eagles all in the playoffs in the NFC. But I think ultimately I had the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl because, I don't know, it's shock.
Yeah, there. I kind of think that the Cowboys and Washington are going to end up within like a win of each other. And honestly, it's probably just going to come down to how the season series goes. And if you told me that Mike Zimmer was the Cowboys defensive coordinator, I would feel really good about Dallas matching up with Washington because what he was able to do last year against Jaden Daniels. Remember, they beat him in Washington last year with Cooper Rush. And then they played in week 18. And listen, I don't know your read on it. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but that first half went so poorly for Washington.
Oh, yeah. It was not going well for Jaden.
And they I think they pulled Jaden because they didn't want to get him hurt because he was getting beat up. And then just wild.
So the plan was to pull him at halftime regardless, but certainly, like you said, like going into the halftime, like you were very happy to see him not back on the field in the second half, regardless.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see. This is going to be really interesting because I believe that only one NFC East wildcard team will be in the playoffs this year. Like I think it's going to be Washington or Dallas, just because I think you'll get one from the North and probably one from the West as well. It's going to be really tough for both of these teams to make it, but these are, I think, honestly, I think both rosters improved this offseason, but their schedules are so tough. It's going to be a struggle to get to double-digit wins.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, they're playing good divisions. They're playing their own division. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's honestly kind of reminds me a little bit of like the SEC and the college ranks. Like by the time any NFC East teams, whether it's 2, 3, or just the one, gets to the postseason, because of the schedule they play, they might be so beat up that a team from, I don't know, the NFC South might be able to creep up and bite them and shock everybody. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch, right? But certainly a lot is gonna hang in the balance on these competitions.
All right. Make sure you go check out the Locked On Washington Commanders podcast. David does a great job. We will be talking to him a couple times during the year during the crossover shows. So be on the lookout for that. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all platforms. And if you missed any episodes this week, go check them out. We did an episode with Patricia from Locked On Giants, previewing the Giants going into the year. She was not quite as optimistic as we are about our teams, but that's fine. Check out our Thursday show where we did the top 100, the 4 Cowboy players that made the list. That was a really fun exercise. Landon will be back on Monday to get you ready for Cowboys training camp. I'm at Marcus_Mosher on Twitter. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you right back here next week.